Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum. My name is Citizen Strife. I'm still under the weather from a cold, a flu, COVID, who knows what. But I've finished up Phoenix Wright, started Final Fantasy VII. I'm not going to let a cold stop me from keeping up to my business unless I can't physically speak. And if nothing else, I'm on the mend, so I'll do my best. Hopefully, this episode goes off pretty well, because I got a schedule to keep, and I'm going to keep to it regardless. And this might be a shorter episode anyway, because we're going to be talking about a sequel season. A second core, if you will. So we did that with Rise of the Shield Hero. We're going to do that with Spy X Family once that finishes up. But this week's episode is going to be about the second season of Shadow's House. So the first season was like 13 episodes. I already have a video of that. It was probably mid this year, about 10 or 15 episodes ago, give or take. And as I said before, the original season I enjoyed, but I felt there was something lacking. I felt that it was trying so hard to be a comedic show in the place and the presence of all of the darkness and a lot of the weird, not ghostly stuff, because the shadows are soot-covered humans, basically completely darkened and soot, and then they have people known as living dolls who are the normal looking anime characters that look like them. So you have this kind of dynamic where you have the soot people running the house, you have the living dolls cleaning the house and serving their masters, but then you also have this like stratification. So older people in the certain part of the home, adults in this cut off sort of place owning everything. And then you have the children. And the children are the characters that we focus on because they're the ones being groomed, so to speak, into becoming adults. There's still a lot of mystery surrounding that show, and I felt like the first season did talk about it, and they did show it in the debut, and they did kind of talk about Mistress Kate and Emilico, and they still do. My biggest problem was it was a bit too comedic for the concepts that they were throwing out, because it's not the deepest look in like classism. I'm not going to say racism, but classism, classist society, and looking down on people and just thinking that they're lesser people. And a lot of it was focused on Emilico because her character was super bubbly, super nice, and naive and stupid to a fault. But she had gumption. But when I reviewed the original show, I felt that the character I would most invest in was Mistress Kate. Because she's very mysterious, very intellectual, very stately, very well-mannered, and understanding of her position, but she's driven, but in that like quiet determination kind of sense. She's curious about everything that's going on to the point of skepticism. And you could always tell that her interactions with people always had an air of uncertainty. And I was like, well, why aren't you focusing on her? Well, I got my wish. I got my wish in the second season. Because what the first season focused on was these characters and their interactions and like who cleans the house and what are the monsters in it and how do you do the thing and how do you serve your masters and what is the effect of the adults on the children. They delve into that more and more and more in season 2, but they also do it in the form of a mystery. Now, I'm not like the biggest mystery guy. It's not a detective show by any means. This is not what that's meant to be. This is a mystery, kind of a story arc. It's about 7 or 8 episodes of a mystery arc. And the idea is one of the best star bearers. We get introduced to Barbara and Barbie as characters, voiced by Elizabeth Maxwell, both characters. And One of them is gruff and annoying and a bitch. One of them is just very unsure of herself, but she has more power than anybody else, and then Kate and anybody else that was in the show, and they kind of use her as like the focal point of the children. So she's the one that's guiding the children, and Barbie in her bitchy way is going to help all of the living dolls. So we've established that. We've also established in season 1 that they're going to do stuff with this like brainwashing coffee. The idea with the coffee is that you drink it every week and then you become subservient even more to your masters and to the heir apparent Lord Grandfather. So it ends up becoming a problem because people don't drink it and they become aware of who they are slowly, bit by bit by bit. But because the coffee is made to brainwash them, it's an important thing. So while Kate and Sean and other people were being kind of told their specific powers, Kate has a sort of telepathy, not super powered telepathy, but she can use it. So they establish kind of what her parameters are. Sean, the big dopey idiot who's kind of like loud and obnoxious, he can punch really hard. There's some other things. My phone went off. Fucking hell. Anyway, so they establish first couple of episodes that they get to do things with their soot powers. And Barbara apparently can just explode and just do crazy shit. Some people can morph, some people can change shadows, can control them, all sorts of things. What you don't want to do is have the soot turn into these malevolent phantoms and soot beings. I forget if they're called phantoms, but yeah, basically just these big clumps of shadows turn into these massive problems. So the first couple of episodes go by, and then the meat of the show ends up becoming this mystery because that coffee gets brought out and you're supposed to drink it. These two dolls drop it. Fuck you, phone. Stop it. I forgot to turn off my phone. Anyway, these two drop the coffee, it breaks, and it becomes a problem. And they get punished so severely that they basically get into this like weird seizure-like state. This catatonic seizure coma thing. So they're punished. Kate is brought as, this annoying pest that stopped Edward in the first season. She decides that she's going to help figure out who the culprits are. So with her taking this kind of lead in the role, the show ends up becoming a mystery. And while the mystery is going on, they start talking to people in different wings of the house. They start learning more about, well, what is it like for a shadow to get married? What is it like to become an adult? What is it like to be invited to the adult's wing? A lot of those, of course, I'm not going to spoil because that would spoil the mystery. But again, my biggest problem with the first part of the show was they were trying way too hard to be comedic. And there's still some aspects of it when Sean and Emilico are on screen. Not Sean, but his master. But John, I think. Yeah, I think it's John is the master, Sean is the doll. So John is the one who's the dork. I need to get that right. I'm not using a primer like I normally do. Whatever, I'm sick. Anyway, so the mystery happens. And for the next 5 or 6 episodes, Kate is the one taking the lead. You bounce around between Barbara and Barbie. Edward, who was the villain in the last set of episodes, he's still kind of mucking around because he was like slap on the wrist kind of thing, But he's now been told, like, you have to control the children and stop being stupid, or otherwise you're not going to rise up the ranks. So we see he's trying to rise up the ranks and all that as a higher level adult. We see Kate trying to piece together little bits of information while other characters are kind of doing their own thing. So several others are meeting different characters in different parts of the house and different children. They're learning about what it's like to be to marry, what's it like to be an adult, all those little things. So they end up finding the culprit. And again, the mystery is not anything I don't think a mystery fan is going to go nuts for. What I think works is that doing so takes the edge off the comedy and starts focusing it on Mistress Kate more and the seriousness of what Shadow's House can be. When I first started seeing the show, what I was expecting was going to be this very serious, very kind of dour exploration of classism, and that's what I was getting. It still has a bit too much comedy for my take, but now it starts to enter into the realm of this brings some levity to the show rather than being what defines the show. Because you can have a serious concept in a very serious show, but then spend a lot of time doing goofy shit, and you're just kind of like, well, I'm kind of taken out of it. This has that proper, like, 70-30, oh, this is a lot more serious now. This was the season I was expecting. And I've heard that criticism that you shouldn't ascribe a certain, like, want to a show. You should expect for what it is and respect it for what it is. But again, when a show finally gives you what you were expecting, it ends up validating things and makes you feel better for wanting it in the first place. So the mystery happens, you realize which character has been fucking around with it, and then things start getting more serious. The ending of the show is about Kate and Barbara kind of coming together in this, like, united front against Edward. They know shit's going south, and they finally realize why shit is going south. And it just ends on a note where there's more to come. Right? And this show is far from over. There's a lot more they can explore. The benefit this show has is they're slowly piecing together bits and pieces of this Shadow's House idea. What is it like to be a human? What is it like to be a living doll? What is it like to being a Shadow Master? What is it like being an adult versus a child? What exactly are the Phantoms? You know, all those little things still have, like, bits and pieces. Like, who are the people in charge? Like, we saw them a little bit. We don't know who this Lord Grandfather guy is. So there's so much stuff you can kind of mine. And we were just 25 episodes in. But this ended up being a show that I liked, and then I liked more. And again, my whole thing was I wanted the classism angle. I wanted the serious stuff, and I got more of it. If you like the jokey, stupid shit, you're going to like Emilico as a character. If you like the more serious, dramatic aspects, you're going to get that with a higher focus in this season with Mistress Kate as the focal point. So the nice thing is that they both still kind of interact as main characters. I was always of the assumption that Kate was the main character and should be focused on. I got my wish. As far as, is it better as a second season? For me, it is. If you like the way the first half went, I don't know if it's going to be necessarily what you want. What you get is more intrigue, political intrigue, the classism angle, and they play around with concepts without giving too much away. So they still give you, like, little breadcrumbs to follow, because they're not anywhere close to being done. I don't know how far the manga is in, but I know that there's a ton of stuff they can mine from this if they choose. And of course, an anime is only going to show so much of what a manga does. But I can guarantee you this. I wanted to like the show in the first half. I definitely like it more after watching the second season. So this is one that I'm really looking forward to. So if I can say that Shield Hero dropped the ball, this show picked it up and stuck the landing so far. And that's all I can really hope for. But that'll do it for me. And like I said, this is going to be kind of a shorter one because I'd already kind of reviewed this show. And I just want to kind of add a little bit more to it, because that's really all you can do. If you haven't seen the show, I would highly recommend it now. Not that I already didn't before. But if you haven't seen the first episode, the first podcast, do that first. Watch this one second. I probably should have mentioned that before I recorded this episode, but hey, I've got a cold. I'm sick. You can let it go. Hopefully, next set of episodes of Tales of Arise or Final Fantasy or the next podcast, I won't feel like such dog shit. But what are we doing next? Well, we're going to focus on Phoenix Wright. I just finished Phoenix Wright Trials and Tribulations, which means after 4 months, Phoenix Wright has been complete. The trilogy that was available on PS4, completely done. And we're going to talk about And Justice for All, the second game in the series. I'll talk about Trials and Tribulations another, 6 months to a year down the road. I don't want to give everything. Because you notice how I set up these episodes, I don't want to talk about everything all the way, all at once. Because if I can do this for a long time, I'm going to. But we're going to talk about And Justice for All. We're going to focus on the animated version. So the anime that was created about 6 or 7 years ago via Funimation, it's fine, I guess. It's not great by any means, but it's cool. If you don't want to, how's the best way I would describe the anime? A much more condensed version of the visual novel, and the characters are still intact. But it does take some shortcuts and cut some leeway. It's not what I would consider the best thing I've ever watched, but I'll talk about both. Going forward, after that, we're gonna have the Final Fantasy VIII review, East 9, Monstrum Nox, among other things. But that'll do it for me, and I'll see you guys on the flip side when I'm not sick anymore. Citizen Strife, signing off.